Hi, and welcome to the line between who you are and who you are living. As I'm just going to share my document with you, here it is, and I know that you can see that well. So, if you are here on a replay, welcome, and please comment in the comment section. Love to hear it. Press like, subscribe, all of those things. You know how it works, I'm sure, these days, and share it to someone that you think would also benefit. But this is only going to be up for a certain amount of time before it is no longer part of the freebie part of my series. So this masterclass is about the line between who you are and who you are living. So it's the moment you left yourself. So this is about why high capacity women collapse under pressure and how to interrupt that pattern. This masterclass is not about becoming more confident or about fixing yourself. It's not about trying harder or about motivation. It's not about mindset hacks or about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about identifying the moment that you stopped trusting yourself. Now, I am going to refer to my notes, so I will be looking a little away from the screen to the side, just so that you get the best possible experience and the most amount of information to improve your life. So, because every time you collapse under pressure, every time you shrink, every time you override your own inner knowing, it traces back to one moment, to one original decision. And most women don't even realize they made that decision. So by the end of this masterclass, you will know whether you've been living as yourself or as the version of you that learned to survive. You will know whether you're repeating a pattern or interrupting it. Let that land. So what we're going to go through today is the first abandonment. So there are actually 4 things that I'd like to go through, and they are the first abandonment moment, the belonging over truth, the safety over authenticity, and the attachment over self-trust. And we're going to go through this one slide at a time. So the first one is the first abandonment moment. So you don't collapse randomly, right? High capacity women collapse a little differently. High capacity women don't fall apart dramatically. They don't explode. They don't create chaos. They quietly cross their own internal line. So let me explain. They say yes when they mean no. They tolerate what drains them. They stay longer than their body wants. They override discomfort. They manage everyone else. They look strong, but under pressure, they shrink. You don't collapse randomly. You collapse predictably. So this is where we have the turning point framework. And turning point has 4 phases. The first abandonment, which we're talking about here, the current line, the pressure identity, and the decision threshold. So the core pattern, you don't shrink randomly. You don't say yes when you mean no because you're weak. You don't stay too long because you're incapable. You collapse under pressure because somewhere along the way, being yourself wasn't safe. This is not a mindset shift. This is a nervous system recalibration. This is where women stop abandoning themselves under pressure. So in the first abandonment moment in Turning Point, we uncover this. Then there is the belonging over truth, which goes back to our 4 slides here. And then there's choosing safety over authenticity. And then there's attachment over self-trust. And your nervous system has been protecting you ever since. So let's go through these in detail. That first abandonment moment, the first time you abandon yourself, was not dramatic. It's rarely a screaming event. It's subtle. It's the first moment a woman overrides her internal knowing in order to stay connected. So it might look like a moment that you decided that not speaking up when something felt wrong, it's safer if I don't say that. Smiling when you felt hurt. Agreeing when your body said no. It's better if I go along. Staying quiet to avoid tension. Saying it's easier if I shrink. Choosing approval over authenticity. And here's what happens psychologically. At that moment, the nervous system registers. Being fully myself is not safe. That's what it's saying. That decision imprints. It becomes a survival adaptation. You don't consciously think, I am abandoning myself. You think, this is what I have to do. And because you survive, the pattern gets reinforced. So from that moment forward, you become loyal to that adaptation, loyal to that decision ever since, not to yourself. That moment became your blueprint of where you act from for everything in your life. That line lands hard. So every collapse under pressure traces back to that first override that you did. And Turning Point uncovers that moment, not to relive trauma, but to interrupt the loyalty that you have to it. So the next one is belonging over truth. So this is the most powerful one. Humans are wired for belonging. For a child, belonging equals survival to their mother. So when truth threatens belonging, the nervous system will choose belonging every time. What does that look like in adulthood? It looks like staying in relationships that no longer align, avoiding difficult conversations, silencing ambition to not intimidate. So it's like silencing your path or silencing what you want to do. Agreeing with family narratives. It's going along with what your family's always done. Playing smaller to maintain harmony, not being your true self. So belonging over truth creates chronic internal tension because the body knows the truth. However, the identity protects the connection. Over time, this creates resentment, exhaustion, subtle depression, emotional numbness, and that knowing I don't know who I am anymore. Why? Because truth has been suppressed and suppressed and suppressed to maintain attachment. And here's the deeper layer. Most women don't realize they are still operating from a child survival mechanism. They think it's love. They think it's loyalty. They think it's maturity. When all it is, it's adaptation. So turning point exposes where belonging became more important than truth. And it asks, this is turning point, is that still necessary? And our next one to dive a little bit deeper on is safety over authenticity. So this is nervous system level stuff. So authenticity is risky. So authenticity, when you're looking to come from that place, it invites us to work with, know, and feel rejection, misunderstanding, change, confrontation, and loss. So because authenticity invites this, the body always chooses safety, because safety looks like predictable patterns, familiar dynamics, emotional control, avoiding intensity, and keeping everything manageable. But what you have then is safety that costs you authenticity, and then that becomes stagnation. You see, this is in high capacity women, and what you see it as boredom, restlessness. Is this all there is? Desire to leave, but fear to move. Constant second guessing. That's self-doubt. They are safe, but they're not alive, because authenticity requires exposure, and exposure activates the same nervous system memory as the first abandonment. So the system says, don't go there. So turning point recalibrates this. It teaches the nervous system that authenticity does not equal danger anymore. That's why this is not mindset work. It's identity recalibration. And the next one is attachment over self-trust. So this is the most mature layer. Once belonging and safety patterns are set, attachment becomes the glue. Attachment says, I can't disrupt this. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to lose what I built, even if the relationship is draining, the career is misaligned, the identity feels outdated, and the environment feels small. Attachment creates internal conflict. The inner voice whispers. The attachment system shouts. And most women interpret that whisper as anxiety. It's not anxiety. It's suppressed self-trust. So attachment over self-trust creates procrastination, looping thoughts, guilt, shame for wanting more, and emotional paralysis. Because the body is trying to protect connection, but the soul is trying to evolve. Turning point makes this visible. It asks, what are you protecting that no longer protects you? So here's the full arc. First, we have the first abandonment. Then there's belonging over truth and safety over authenticity and attachment over self-trust and the pressure collapse pattern. And as you can see, my diagram is repeating something and missing something. I apologize for that. But it is the first abandonment, belonging over truth, safety over authenticity, and attachment over self-trust. And then we have the pressure collapse pattern. That's what it is in one. So this cycle, well, it's a cycle. And when pressure rises, the nervous system returns to the first blueprint. That's why women say, I've done so much healing, but why am I back here? Because healing without identity interruption doesn't shift that internal line. So why is this powerful for you here today? Because this is not fluffy spiritual language. This is attachment theory, nervous system survival adaptation, identity formation, pattern interruption, somatic awareness, and psychological recalibration. And what I do is I speak it through embodiment. As I've been a massage therapist for over 30 years, working with transformational therapy in massage with people working with the body to recalibrate all these things. So the body remembers, right? So I want to bring this in somatically. Let's place one hand on the body, anywhere where you might feel pressure. It could be the heart, it could be the shoulders, it could be your head, it could be your lower back, wherever that is. And you can stand or you can be seated or you can gently move as you scan your body. So what I'd like you to do is also close your eyes if you feel you need to, but take a nice deep breath in and just think of a current situation where you feel pressure or have felt pressure. You know, where your shoulders tighten up around your ears, where your stomach might drop, where your throat just closes over. Just trust what comes through. You know, it might be a feeling, an emotion, a movie, or a picture. And just sort of pinpoint in that moment, where do you feel pressure in your body currently? And just trust what comes up. You know, is it the shoulders? Is it the chest, the throat, the gut, or that lower back? Because the body stores the moment you choose someone else over yourself. So let's find out where that is and hold it. So you might close your eyes and ask the question. Ask your body, when have I felt this before? When have I felt this before? See what comes up. Because the body remembers the first time you chose belonging over truth. Whatever comes up, you can write a short sentence down or just remember what it is, or the picture, or the movie, or the feeling. When have you felt like this before? Something will come up. And this is where your emotional memory rises. Now, you don't fix this, you just hold it. Hold what the body is remembering. And write that down. Pause if you need to write it down. Everything that's coming, the picture, everything. Because from here, this is why healing doesn't hold. And we're talking about the problem. So there's many of you who've done the therapy. They've done the breath work, the massage, the yoga, the coaching, the journaling. And it all helps until pressure rises again and your identity crumbles under that pressure, meaning you're not holding. Because emotional release is not the same as identity shift. And you're doing emotional release in a lot of that therapy work. So it's if your identity doesn't shift, you will return to the same internal line every time. So if your internal line does not move, you return to the same self under that stress. So this is where Turning Point can help you move that. There is a process to interrupt this pattern, which we dive deeper into what we've talked about already in this masterclass today. Remembering that this is not therapy, it's not mindset coaching, this is a threshold. So going back through those 4 phases are the first abandonment. We locate that in current internal line. We understand your pressure identity, and we cross into a conscious threshold. So that line that you came up with, that memory that you came up with, this is what we will actually work through. And what I'd like you to do is in the comments, if you can give me a small snapshot, 1 sentence in that, I would love to connect with you and have a small chat with each one of you about that, whether that be on Messenger, whether that be in your DMs, whether that be on WhatsApp, whether it be in a phone call, whatever suits you. Because after that conversation, this is where Turning Point can actually come in to help you, where we identify that moment that you first self-abandoned, because even the moment that you've come up with today may not actually be that moment, but I can guarantee it's related to it, if not the one. And this is where we build a new internal line. So if this masterclass resonated, if you felt something in your body, if you recognized a moment in there, if something shifted, that's not coincidence. That's just awareness returning. So Turning Point has, well, it's a 4-session threshold container. It's where women identify, I want to keep on this one, it's where women identify the moment they first abandon themselves and they choose a new internal line that they are actually willing to hold now. So this is not for women who are curious. It's for women who are done negotiating with themselves. And the details are the 15th of March is the start date, and it's via Zoom. We can also do WhatsApp sessions if that doesn't suit. The price is $997, and it's 4 sessions of 90 minutes per week or per fortnight, whatever suits. And then there is 2 3-hour online group intensives. So there is a form to fill out where you can attend any of those throughout the year. And of course, there are limited spots, right? Again, this is not for women who are curious. It's for women who are done negotiating with themselves. So if you feel it, then type T into that chat box and I'll send you more details about Turning Point. And if you're watching the replay, message Turning Point and I'll send you even more of the details. You already know whether this is for you or not. Your body answered before your mind did. So type felt in the chat if something landed for you, and we will bring you more. So just to let you know, I help women stop leaking energy between the sessions. So the yoga, the breath work, all that sort of stuff by restoring that self-trust and that identity coherence and that internal authority so that the body work that you're actually doing actually holds. And I thank you very much for coming along to this masterclass today. And we will be going on a journey together even more. So pop those questions into the chats or wherever you are seeing this and reach out to me with that so we can find out if this is your first abandonment moment. Thank you. See you later.